So comedian Dave Chappelle facing some backlash once again for including jokes about transgender people.
The blowback to Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle is under fire.
You see people trying to cancel a Dave Chappelle show and they go, if I said any of these things at my job, they'd fire me immediately. Well, Dave doesn't work at 3M.
The reality is like 90% of the country still likes comedy the way it's been for the last 50 years.
To me, like, true equality is everybody, and you're making fun of everybody equally.
When you start worrying about what the world is going to think of what your art is, your art's going to be very, very terrible.
I live in Brooklyn, New York. I work at Netflix in the city. I walked out of the office and I just kept on walking.
I don't think America's gotten too sensitive. We've just inflamed the very small minority of people who are sensitive and given them superpowers. So powerful that 150 online protesters can get Dave Chappelle, perhaps one of the most famous comedians of all time, removed from his show.
I actually don't think America is too sensitive. I think people need to laugh. People need to laugh now more than ever.
I'm going to try to take everything away from you. And I don't care when I find out. Could be today, tomorrow, 15, 20 years from now. If I find out you're finished. Who's that? That's you.
The people that want to censor comedy or cancel comedians who are, you know, being edgy, taking risks, pushing the envelope, I think they're a very, very organized vocal minority.
It's never people who would ever even have come to your stand-up show. They're not even your fans. It's just, they're not even people that would really like comedy in general.
You can't protect a certain group of people. They'll actually end up feeling excluded and isolated. You know, I think comedy is like the most inclusive thing. You know, when you hang out with your friends, what do? You all make fun of each other. So you can't slowly start cutting out topics and people that you can't joke about, but that's what they're doing on Netflix, and that's why the numbers are dwindling.
There really is a clamoring and I think a resurgence of audiences that just don't want politically correct comedy anymore. They want things that are raw and offensive and edgy. And I think we're right on the cusp of this real renaissance of comedy, of guys that are willing to push the envelope with, you know, with comedy being that prevalent and popular. It seems like everyone has an opinion on it, and especially not just what is in good taste, but how it should be done and who should get to do it. So many people will say, oh, I love comedy. You could say whatever you want. You can't offend me. And that person who says that is always the first person to get up and walk out of the show, because inevitably everyone has some line, that's some sacred cow that they believe is not okay to make fun of. A lot of Americans that want to suppress the freedom of comedy for the same reasons they want to suppress a lot of these other freedoms that are just things that they disagree with.
People have become accustomed to, like, well, I want it off my screen, so I want to make it so this person never works again. Whereas before, it's like, if you didn't like a comedian, you just wouldn't see them. Now it's like, oh, I don't like this comedian, and I don't agree with them, with things they say or joke about, and I don't. Not only do I not want to see them, but I want to make sure nobody else can see them. It's ultimately the most selfish thing you can do. It's like you're saying, my wants, my likes, my dislikes, that has to be the gold standard.
So much of what people ask you to defend, both on the internet and in comedy and in your artistic stuff, is they want you to defend what their interpretation of it was.
Am I canceled or not?
Too often, too much credit is given to the way people interpret what you're saying or what you're doing as a comedian, rather than what your real intentions are. And the more credibility we lend that with responding, the worse this problem is going to get. So when you see venues like First Avenue cave to the mob, that's what's dangerous about it, is because that basically tells all those transgender people that what they think Dave Chappelle's saying about them is true. And that's not the case at all.
I used to kind of play it safe. I would do a lot of impressions, you know. I'd frankly do a lot of Donald Trump, and I'd make fun of Donald Trump for 4 years. And then I made fun of Biden, and they're like, oh, you're far right. I'm like, no, he's in power. I make fun of who's in power. So I've been terrified to kind of step outside of that you know, woke bubble. I don't have a political party, but people will tell me all the time, like, man, your comedy has gone so right wing. But the fact is, the left has gone so far that now anything sort of nuanced in the middle, non-censored, is considered far right.
Now, if you attack Dr. Anthony Fauci, you are also attacking science.
And equality through comedy is everyone gets made fun of, because like true equality is like, you're not so special that we're going to pretend you're not even here.
So that's what's a real concerning thing, is that we have almost this religious crusade now with the political sides over who is right and who is wrong. And people now have this idea that if I believe you're wrong and people agree with me, then there is no limit to which freedoms I'm willing to take away from you. And that's just not in the spirit of America.
Freedom now is extreme. Having an American flag is extreme.
Comedy's about bringing joy to people, you know, and even when that outrages people, in some way, it's triggering those sensory receptors for them that it ultimately gives them some pleasure, even if they're opposing what you're saying. I think the outrage is more about the fact that we believe we're allowed to live like that, rather than outrage about what we're actually saying. It just feels so counterintuitive to like why any of us do comedy in the first place if you're going to start editing it.
You guys gotta remember, I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm saying it because it's funny.
Comedians just need to stop buying into all the noise, and they need to just start telling jokes how they want. You're never going to develop as an artist unless you cross the line.
I really try to keep the artist mindset about comedy, and just if it genuinely makes me laugh, whether people think it's appropriate or not, I try to build from that place. And I will either make fans or not based on the kind of content I do, but I'd rather take the tortoise's race to the finish of making the kind of fans I want than just doing what's easy to appease people.
You can get kind of caught up in the really loud kind of woke, you can't say anything, we're triggered, you just this is violent. But if you look over on this side, people still want to hear jokes and hear comedians take risks. So it's a lot more painful at first, but once you get through that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Put any black people in the front? What's going on? You trying to get me canceled?
You're not going to like find success and find your people by kind of like playing it safe. And that's what it's about. It's like, it's an art form. You have to take risks.
The minute you start doing it for other people, it stops being funny and it stops being true to you.